There we go. Good morning, everyone. We are on with, of course, our special guest, Master Jeff Speakman, and my co-host, Mrs. Jenny Keiper, who is the owner and the head instructor of Jeff Speakman Kempo 5.0 Online Academy. And I encourage you to check that out. But first of all, good morning, Mr. Speakman. Thank you for spending time with us.
Good morning. I want to thank you both for all the work you've done, and it's been a tremendous success. So thank you for all of that.
And lucky us, we get to talk to all these really cool people, so
Exactly.
And yes, I mean, it's really, it's not like work at all. It's as a joy, so
right.
This last summer, now that was, I believe, the 28th anniversary, your camp this summer in Vegas.
Yes.
And it was my first. So I was incredibly exciting. And I want to talk about it a little bit with you, because I also want to encourage other people who haven't attended to come to it. But set the stage a little bit. Tell us, the location and everything, surrounding that.
Yes. You're right. It was the 28th consecutive annual World Martial Art event. And it was a tremendous success. We had 1,000 spectators watching the black belt class. We had 400 competitors. We had 960 people for the banquet dinner that Saturday night. And so this is something that we have worked very, very hard at building over these many years, almost 3 decades now. And we're very proud of it. It largely, almost exclusively exists of 5-0 people and competitors and the family members, but that doesn't need to be the case because everyone is invited. They just select not to come for whatever reason, and that's okay. The only thing I want to say is that you're welcome to come if you wish. So it was a tremendous event. Every year we get a little bit bigger and bigger. And we're actually moving to a new location beginning next year, which is a hotel called the Horseshoe, which used to be Bally's. So it's right on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard, AKA the Strip, and Flamingo Boulevard. So it's a tremendous location. We're very excited about it. And yeah, it's always so just to be clear, our first night is testing for brown and black belts. We had about 130 people on the floor testing. And as I mentioned, about 1,000 spectators. Excuse me. But then the next day is the competition day. So that's open to sets and forms and self-defense techniques. And then closed, the only kind of competition fighting we do is 5-0 fighter. And that is not an open, it's an invitational only. So each year we get bigger and better. We have kind of, we suffered, of course, as everybody else through COVID. And there's probably 50 competitors and another 200 people who normally come from Australia and New Zealand, and only literally a handful were able to come because of the complications of COVID. So many of those people are coming to our annual event in November in Europe. Just south of Paris is a beautiful community called Étampes, so it's actually part of Paris. And we put on, this will be our 9th annual event, our 9th consecutive event. But many of the people from Australia and New Zealand are coming all the way over, 3 times the travel, because believe it or not, it still is about half the cost of the airfare to go all the way over to Europe than just to come over here to the United States. Now, we expect that to change, of course, by next year. So maybe all those wonderful Aussies and Kiwis will be able to come to Las Vegas. But the great thing is I'm going to see them again. I haven't seen them in 3 years. I miss them terribly. And the reason they're sacrificing so much and traveling 3 times the distance is because they also miss us. So we kind of need to be together. It's the human thing that we're kind of known for. We're very social animals, and we've created a society built within ourselves we call the 5-0 family, which is built first on the love and friendship we have for one another, and secondly on the Kempo that we do. So that's kind of a thumbnail sketch of what it was and what it is.
Yeah, and again, it was my first, so I was very overwhelmed, with the whole thing. I mean, the opening night and the drums and the ceremony, and it's inspiring as an underbelt to see that and to see everyone who's worked so hard, and then just do this tremendous test. That was inspiring, and of course, the people that you have instructing, and it's so exciting. But it really is those people, the people that you meet and the friendships that you form. I mean, if you haven't experienced something like that, I want you to look into this next July. And Mr. Speakman, you'll tell us a little bit more about that. Do you have other new aspects? I mean, you're always learning doing this huge event, I'm sure.
Right. Yes. That's an understatement. We learn a lot every year. One of the parts that's really, really good news, which makes it just a little bit more difficult from our point of view on the administration side, which is we've become so big, we've grown out of many of the hotels that are sort of those off-strip properties, because we just need so much square footage now that we didn't need before. So that meant we have to go find other hotels. And the problem with that is you have to create new relationships with people that you work with. You want to work with the same people every year so that you book your dates 2 or 3 years in advance. And 6 months before, you're taking meetings with the same people you've met. Man, what do you think? How big will it be? Well, we can do this for you this year. And last year we did this. And we need that. You just need a collaboration with a bunch of people who know what the heck they're talking about, and they know you and we know them. So we've got to try to start that over again. We are only going to be at the Horseshoe 1 year because they're already booked all the way through 2025 and 2026, believe it or not, ridiculous. But we are negotiating now with the Rio Hotel for 25, 26, and 27. Because they have an enormous convention center. It's absolutely huge, but their hotel was kind of dicey. It just sold, and they're putting a $400 million renovation into the hotel, which will easily be done by July of 2025. So this is probably going to be the place we call home starting in 2025 and moving forward. But you can imagine each one of those to have to start renegotiating every year is just, it's a lot of work, and it's a killer in responsibility because, I mean, really, if you think about it, we've become so successful in that because everybody has a wonderful time like you did. So to make sure that's your experience, and everybody that comes, even their first time or their 25th time, to have a wonderful time, really enjoy Las Vegas, meet people from all over the world that are doing the same thing you are, and get the vibe which you got, which is the love and friendship that we have and this world we have built, we call the 5-0 family.
Yeah, one of my highlights was that my husband and I got to dance a little bit with Sensei Benny the Jet and his wife Sarah.
Aren't they amazing? They're just
they
the most amazing.
And that's what's so cool is you're in there, and you're rubbing shoulders with all these wonderful people from all over the place. And I got big hugs from people who have seen us on this show from Europe, and so it's just a wonderful thing. What we need is next, maybe not this year, the year after, the big sphere to have the Kempo 5-0 symbol.
How cool would that be?
I'm going to work on that. That's a great idea. That is a great idea.
Yeah. So Mrs. Keiper, just to have the opportunity to talk to our senior master is a wonderful thing. So I know your brain, you've been thinking all week and all morning. So what do you want to delve into?
Well, I just kind of want to circle around back to what Mr. Speakman said earlier. We are first a Kempo family, and then second, we kind of do martial arts on the side, when we decide we want to. But how cool it is to be able to go to the European and area and do the tour. We have people right now, just so everybody's aware, and us on the screen, because I'm the one managing the comments. When questions come in, I'm going to be answering, or not answering. You're going to be answering the questions. I'm going to be asking questions for everybody watching. But we have people from Greece right now watching, from North Bay, from Santa Fe, Pasadena, Kansas, Arizona, Northeast New England, Belgium, Virginia, West Virginia, Florida. I mean, people are coming from all over. So we are speaking to our family right now. They're tuning in from all over the world. So this just goes to show how amazing our family is. And to be able to, one of the things that I absolutely love about what you do, sir, is yes, we're a family, and it's a priority that you go and see all of us in person. I mean, you're going to be spending in Europe. How long are you going to be there on that tour?
We'll be there almost a month. We're going to 4 different countries, starting with the event in Paris.
And you already said it. It's an open event. So even if if people are not Kempo 5.0 or not even Kempo, or maybe not just excited about martial arts, but never really put their toe in the water, they're absolutely welcome to come to these events and see what we're doing, see what we're all about, be a part of our family.
Yes, exactly. And I'm so glad to hear you phrase what you did at the beginning there, talking about, the really important thing is this family that we have built. This, I refer to it as like a utopian society, where the best of what it is to be human is not fully on display for all of us to see and be a part of. And that's a bit of the message I want to make sure I get out there, because sometimes I think people who are relatively new with us, maybe a year, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, they feel like they have to earn that place with us, and they don't. The moment that you walk in and become a part of the 5.0 family, as long as you bring the right energy to the table, you immediately become a part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem, because you're open to learning, you're open to communicating, you're open to creating a place where all of us can live, where we really truly care about one another. And that along everyone's life, suffering will come. That's part of the deal, the birth-death cycle. And it's really wonderful to be able to know that when those really dark moments come, that you have a family around the world that rushes to your side to let you know you're not alone, you belong here, we care about you, and we'll be there to support you through your time of trouble. And that really is clearly the most important thing, because if you take, 2 minutes to watch the news today, you find out that it's exactly the opposite of that is what's taking place all around the world, and the rise of authoritarianism and the oppression of other groups as opposed to the acceptance. And what I want to do, and what I believe that we're doing very well, is to put on full display that this is a group where all of those things that are used around the world to separate people, to create problems and tension between groups, none of those things exist here. I refer to all of those as the walls of illusion, because they're created by people who have their own agenda. And they use hate and vitriol and fear to keep people isolated in their groups so they can control them, so they can benefit financially, or just for power, or worse, for both power and money. And so we don't want to be a part of that world. We've created a world where those walls of illusion are taken down. And the only criterion for you to be a part of the 5.0 family is the content of your character. Okay, and how do we determine that? Well, I can tell you how I do it. I look at how you treat the other people in your family. And if you're there as a support, that you want to create solutions, you want to help to make our family, and through that function, the world, a better place, then you have found your home. But if you just want someplace to cause trouble, or you just want a place to talk and complain about stuff, you're not going to belong here. You're not going to like it. We're not going to like you. You won't like me. So let's just get on with it and move on and go someplace else where there is judgment and there is hate, which will satisfy your desires, which are far beyond the range of my comprehension. But I stay focused on what we're doing and why we're doing it and the success that we're having.
Yes. Yes. That trickles down because I see that leadership in so many of your people. And I've had the pleasure of like Mr. Anto Parsegian, just wonderful people that you've
Yes.
brought to this organization. And it's really true. I mean, I came in, gosh, a year ago to the online academy. It's been about a year. And I can't believe, it's consistent across the board, the people that I've met. And I think people who aren't good people, what you're saying, they're not going to want to stay around,
Right.
Yeah. But I also really quickly, before we go on, Mrs. Keiper, want to say thank you, especially to Mr. Wim Lambert this morning. I noticed that he invited a whole bunch of new people who are joining us. So I want to say thank you and welcome to all of our new followers as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, today's conversation is going to be in part directed by anybody who's here with us live, because you guys are all welcome to put questions in the comments. I will do my best to be your voice, but we're probably not going to be able to get to everybody's question. We'll do our best. So we did have a couple questions come in before we started, but I definitely want to bring this conversation full circle to kind of what we talked about and round it out with the whole family aspect and moving forward in like-minded energy in the direction you see us being able to take this in the future. But that's towards the end. So
Okay.
I'll start with one of the questions. It comes from one of my own. He just tested and promoted to his purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so his question is going to be more Jiu-Jitsu based. And you'll see Miss Lori and I have our phones in our hands. This is because we are keeping tabs on your questions. We're not like surfing the web, not part of this.
Exactly.
But my question I have to read from my phone. So the first one is when you started your jiu-jitsu training, what was your perspective? That's the first part of the question. I'm going to continue reading and you can pick this up wherever you want. Were you focused on understanding it to learn how to beat it? Or did you have the perspective of just adding it to your game? And did your perspective change?
Hard to answer the question the way it's phrased because the truthful answer is it's both equally. So I've always said, the amount of time I've spent in a jiu-jitsu school under the guidance of Todd Nathanson in Tarzana, California, was absolutely amazing. Man, I was so fortunate which I was introduced to him specifically, to find a school that had world-class talent and have such a wonderful, open, welcoming feeling to the whole school and everybody that trained there. Every single person was so incredibly talented. But I'll give you just one example. I might be there and working on a particular move, and while we're freestyling, somebody does that move on me, and I tap, and I stop and I say, that was amazing. Would you please teach me how to do that? And he would stop and say, you know what, I can, but Bill is better at that move than I am. So he would call Bill and say, hey, come over and teach Jeff the whatever move. And that was pervasive throughout the entire school. And what that says is, I'm more interested in that person, in this case, Jeff Speakman, having a good experience and learning things the right way. So I'm going to step out and bring somebody who really is better than me. And if you really think about that, that mentality would have to start at the top. And that was exactly what Todd Nathanson was and is somebody that's that open and that concerned about making sure that you benefit from his training. So I went at it with the attitude of just a completely open blank slate. I just had whatever limited experience I had in it before. And I went in to go, okay, what is this going to be like? So I had a white gi, a white belt, and frankly, I was the other white meat every night when I went in there and got creamed every night. But, they stopped short of intentionally hurting me. There was nobody out to get the guy that used to do the movies, all of that kind of really incredibly insecure male macho nonsense. They were there just to help you to have a good experience. And I will forever be very, very grateful to Mr. Nathanson, his school. And he came from the Machado side of the jiu-jitsu world. So the last thing I wanted to say about this was, along with that, just experiencing it and all the positive things that came from it, I had to learn the entire range of what they were doing. And then along that journey, something would hit and I would go, we got to have that in 5-0 with us, because it was so incredibly impactful, like it hurt when they did it. So I went, okay, that's got to come home with us. So it really expanded the knowledge and my experience. And simultaneously at that time, over a long period of time, several black belts who left Kempo because there was no application to the ground, they went into jiu-jitsu and into MMA very heavily. Then when they found out what we were doing, because they loved Kempo, they came back. And when they came back, they brought their skill set. So I continued to learn from my students, both old and new. And then this whole thing has always been eclectic. It's always been, okay, anybody who has anything of value, please share it so that we can learn and grow and become better over time. And now a slightly longer version of that answer is, because I approached it from that point of view, we actually now are teaching Kempo 5.0.2, because in about 2014, we started in 2005. In 2014, there were enough changes that we needed to evolve again to bring us up to speed, as it were. So that would mean, in theory, there could be a 5.0.3 sometime down the road. I don't see it at the moment, but I'm open to it.
So Miss Renee Rowe of our 5.0 North Bay School is here watching, and she asked the question before I did, so she gets the credit. But if you could explain why you added all of this into 5.0, I mean, you kind of touched into it that some students left because they didn't have the ground, but also what's different about the ground stuff we have in 5.0 versus what you would get at a jiu-jitsu school?
Yes, the differences are really, really minute from looking from the outside in. Only until you get inside and you get on the ground or you get into our techniques can you really see this is where a jiu-jitsu person would go from here to there, but we won't. Because the essential nature of the thinking that took us forward into the 5.0 system is those things, MMA, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, they're all sport, they're martial sports. And because of that, they have rules. And so in order to give us the advantage, we learned your rules, and then we created techniques that violate your rules. But because that would give us a very small window of opportunity to do Kempo on the ground. But that would only be effective if you had some significant awareness and basic understanding of what to do on the ground. And now this answers your other question, which is the thinking that I went through before I entered into this monstrous task of inculcating ground fighting into Kempo where there was none. So anybody who's done Kempo or martial arts to a very significant amount, you understand how difficult it is to change and how trying and taxing that can be. But it was the direct mandate from Ed Parker. You know, one of his famous quotes is, "When I'm gone, I hope no one traditionalizes my art." And that's kind of the nutty thing, because almost everyone has traditionalized it. Only a handful of people have tried to go on and do something different with it. I'm one of those. And we're really, of that very small select group of people, we're really the only ones that focused on how to take Kempo to the ground. And I think that's why we're successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could change the direction, I know we've got lots of questions coming in, and if we don't get to all of you, it's not the last time we'll have Mr. Speakman on the program and we'll get to ask him questions. So we will definitely get there. But so kind of changing directions a little bit, Mr. Speakman, obviously getting to 10th degree black belt is inspiring itself. And I know, I can only imagine what your road has been like in your life, you know. Speak to that a little bit, and what can other people take from that in their own journey and in the goals that they want to achieve? Like, if you could talk to us about that.
Yes, it's an outstanding question. It's very complex because it has this incredibly powerful positive thing to it and this incredibly negative thing to it. It's sort of a living yin yang pattern, you know, if you can visualize that. So just as you said, going for your achieving your 10th degree black belt should be held in the highest regard. It should be sought after for at least 40 years, not that you take a vacation for 20 years and then you came back. It's 40 years of being in it and at it. And your contributions and the evolution of all those things should be a part of what it takes to be a 10th degree black belt. So I pursued that vigorously through all my years. And then the next question becomes, okay, when I was ready to go for it, I had a couple of years to think about it. And then so what I was thinking about was, who am I going to ask to be the actual individual to promote me to 10th? And that was something that I searched inside myself for literally a couple of years. And in every way, in every direction, emotional or not, calm or excited, or you pick any state of mind, always it came back, what Mr. Parker would want is for Benny Urquidez to do that. Knowing, and so I concluded that myself. Now I'm getting ready to make the phone call to Benny Urquidez to ask this very, very important question. And in myself, I thought there's at least a 50% chance he'll go, you know, thanks for asking, Jeff, but it's really something I'm not comfortable with, or there could be a variety of reasons, and reject that. And then I would, you know, go back to thinking about what now. But what was wonderful was I expressed to him in great detail what I just shared with you. And he immediately came back and said, it would be a tremendous honor to promote you to 10th degree black belt. So he not only accepted it, but he was so gracious in how he accepted it. And his wife, Sarah, who everyone knows, it's Benny and Sarah. It's never one or the other. And for good reason. I mean, whenever you're around those people, you can actually see the love that they have for one another. It's really inspiring and incredible. And she's also a seer in the Native American world, which is where she comes from, as does Mr. Urquidez. And she actually got emotional because she could feel the presence of Mr. Parker approving of Mr. Urquidez's acceptance of the responsibility of taking me to 10th. So from every internal emotional process that I could have ever taken myself through to arrive at the point of, okay, if you're going to do this, Jeff, think, stop, bring love and energy and responsibility. And how would you like to do this? And where would you like to go? So we have maintained that feeling of it being incredibly special, a tremendous accomplishment. And that's how I wanted it to be. And I want all my students to feel that, which I know that they do. So it's, we did this together, you know, so it's very, very much the idea of first I did it right with Mr. Urquidez. And then I said, okay, we're doing this, you know, it's not like I'm achieving this and, you know, I'm doing all this for us. so that we can have a happy life together and live in each other's love and friendship for the rest of our lives. Now, the outside of the 5-0 world is where, I'm so disappointed because I'm watching 10th degree black belts being handed out all over the world. There's several hundred now in the art of Kempo. And it was only just a few years ago, 4 years, probably, maybe going on 5, that I started to become aware that many of the people who were many years my senior weren't doing even the complete 4.0 art. So they just selected huge amounts of the art that Mr. Parker developed and taught and inculcated into the system and just selected to ignore it. I was completely ignorant of that for the better part of 36 years. That just goes to tell you how asleep at the wheel I was, because I came from Japanese Goju-Ryu under Lou Angel, and so to have anybody along the path stop and go, I don't like that. Let's just forget it. Let's take it out. And that too, and that too, and that too. That kind of thinking just doesn't even enter my consciousness. And of course, yes, I was slammed for decades trying to figure out how to bring these two worlds together in a cohesive system. And yes, that took a lot of time. But when I started kind of like look over the corner of the box and peek over at what's going on out there, I was just so disappointed, because all that work that Ed Parker did isn't going to be appreciated. And if I were able now to speak over those people who are many years my senior to their students, to your black belts, to your black belt school owners, what I want to say is there is a wealth of information that's in the extensions and in the higher katas, especially number 7 and number 8. And you are depriving yourself of that experience and that information because you're following somebody who just has selected not to do it for whatever reason. It's irrelevant. But what I want to say is, please reach out somewhere to somebody who's still teaching the 4.0 system and ask them to teach you the advanced material and the extensions and all of that. Because my feeling is you're asking so little of Kempo because it has so much more to give you. And you're selecting not to participate in that energy. And I want you to. I want you to experience it. Then once you experience it, if you don't want to do it, if you want to, of course, do whatever it is you want. We don't. I mean, we want to do the entire system, and that may be great for you or not great for you. But we have altered the system tremendously. So if you want to learn those things, don't come to me. I'm not looking for students. If you want to do the 5.0 system, great. Then come on over and we'll have that conversation, and then you can decide if it's right for you or not. But I'm not going to take time out of that to come over and teach somebody who should have been doing it all along anyhow. But with that being said, I'm not trying to disrupt a structure for the purpose of getting students to come over to me. I'm not doing that. I don't care. What I care about is that you experience the art of Kempo and that you have the value of that in your life experience, and you add that to your repertoire, because it's very sad for me to watch the life work of this great man, Ed Parker, not be appreciated and not carried on after his death. It should be.
One of the things you were just talking about, the teaching, I think that's one of the things that sets us so dramatically apart is the love and the passion that all of the instructors have for teaching this amazing style. And we look up to you and your leadership and how you teach, because you're such an amazing teacher. One of the people who's watching is an instructor at the DeSoto 5.0 school, and she has a question about teaching. She's also kind of our martial arts life mascot, Miss Kenzie Morgan. So her question, she said that I understand constant training and studying helps a great deal, but what other things have aided you and to adapt so quickly to different situations when teaching? So she says, I'm still learning to be a teacher, but for me, it's learning to understand each individual's person's mind. Everybody learns different and at different places and spaces. And so how do you go
Yeah.
about it?
That's a wonderful question. It's very perceptive on her part to even see that and then to ask, how do I get there?
Yeah.
I think the way I answered these kind of things and many others is more from the position of a guide than an instructor, because I want you, all of you, to discover the system of Kempo and discover the system of 5-0 on your own, and so that you own it. And so that you don't feel like you're have an attitude of onerous to me. I want you to be your own leader. I want you to be your own person. And I want you to tailor the art to fit your personality and your needs. Now, that being said, the traditional way of the Chinese looking at the instruction of the martial arts is they look at the individual, and then they have different categories of energy. Usually it's like 4 or 5 different categories that they refer to, that they want to analyze who you are. So what is the energy that you get from diet, from your personality, how you interact with people, how you conduct yourself in life? What is the energy the universe is giving back to you? All those different things have a value, and you try to find out what that person is lacking in, and then you help them to rise above that to have a more balanced, happy, healthy life, which theoretically gives 2 options. One is you could experience the most wonderful thing of being human, which is to be in love with someone, and not only to be vulnerable enough to love them, but the big ask is for you to be vulnerable enough to be loved by them. And only at that time of the both of you coming together can you really experience love on a higher vibratory plane. And so that self-discovery, that introspection is why I will answer questions sort of generally, maybe give you the name of a book to go read or something like that, because I want you to discover it. I don't want to tell you what it is. It's been that for me, and I can share that with you in many cases I do. But the important thing is that this journey I've experienced in the martial arts is a part of who I am. And I want you to have that same experience where you have a sense of ownership that you delivered because you sought the answers to the questions, and you worked hard, and you used introspection and intellect to get you to that destination. And if you can approach martial arts like that, any of them, it doesn't matter. We have several schools who have switched over from Shotokan now. We have a wonderful relationship with the Okinawan Karate group, which they have, and that's where karate began in the world, as you probably know. And so one of the seniors from the most famous dojo there comes now the last 2 years to sit on the testing board here in Las Vegas. That's never happened before. And so that's a position that you have to earn. You can't buy that, no movie star nonsense, none of that stuff. You have to be of a certain energetic value to attract that kind of participation from those people. And through my dear friendship with Mickey Brock for well over 40 years now, from Goju-Ryu through Lou Angel, he's the one that made that connection and made that happen. So that's part of the other growth that we're experiencing. Most of the Kempo world doesn't want to have anything to do with us and what we're doing. But what's really interesting is there's non-Kempo people who are really interested in what we're doing. So that's where a lot of our focus has been.
Okay, it's a interesting thing to me that Okinawa is one of the cultures where people live the longest. You think that the martial arts might have had some impact on that, as well as their diet and lifestyle.
Yeah, that blue zone thing that they keep talking about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 No, that's very interesting. So, wow, we might have to go over just a few minutes since we started late, because we've got several other questions. Plus, I want to have a little conversation with you about the online academy and why you think that works. But I think Mrs. Keiper is ready with another listener question. So,
Good.
So
Okay.
to be fair, Mr. Speakman, Miss Renee Rowe says that her students ask her, you doing the thing that Mr. Speakman does where you don't answer the question, you make us figure it out. So we're learning. Pass it on,
Yeah.
be the guide to the students, right?
Yeah,
So it's
right.
the same student, kind of the follow-up question, which this question, I love it. I love, okay, so you'll appreciate it. As a leader, how is it you yourself are able to stay calm under pressure, especially while running the big test in Vegas? She wants to be a great leader too. And she says, I understand that being a leader is far more than just standing there teaching. It's getting out there and participating, adapting to different situations, and never giving up.
Very well said. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, that's a great question. And the answer to it is experience. I have so much experience in the whole movie star thing I did, traveling all over the world, being trained personally by Ed Parker, and before that, Lou Angel. I mean, that gives me a great deal of depth and breadth into where I am and where I'm going and how I want to get there. And by observing that journey and now you participating and you being a part of it, you're going to be able to peel off of that the answers to your question. It goes back to that same philosophy that I talked about a little while ago, which is my job or my effectiveness as a leader is really in executing these things as a guide, not as a teacher. I'm not the guru type. I'm very much into the lead by example, followed by choice. You make the choice. You know, here's who we are. This is what we do. This is why we do it. Completely transparent. Every single thing, whether it's how we think, how I talk, or the system itself, is completely transparent. Everybody fits that mold. Everybody understands the clarity of that. And it's so easy when it's laid out. Ultimately is this thing we have called Learn Worlds, which is a very big part of what you're doing, Ms. Keiper. And imagine every technique, every set, every form is on video and written out and available to every student all over the world in 21 countries. So 5,000 people. If you're sitting in Italy having lunch, you can pull up your cell phone on any device and you can watch any of the techniques or any of the sets or any of the forms 24/7. So that's not just available to instructors, that's available to every single student in different languages, available all around the world. And that complete transparency and openness of material, a lot of groups and organizations don't want to do that, because as soon as you open everything up and say, this is what I know and this is what I do, you're opening yourself up to criticism. And maybe you're getting it wrong. And maybe you have been selling a line of, oh yeah, I was with Ed Parker, and you weren't. Maybe you saw him once a year, once every 2 years in seminars or what have you. And that makes you feel vulnerable, that you're going to lose students and that you're going to lose your position or how you look at yourself or whatever. And so people become very defensive about that. And I don't care. If they're going to feel that way, then go ahead and feel that way, because I'm only interested in the best for all of the students. That's the only thing I care about. And you, as you're mentioning, like Renee Rowe is a perfect example. She's and the other Samantha French, who is there with her at the school, the both of them run an incredibly successful, first-rate Tempo 5.0 school in central Northern California, close to San Francisco, and they're both women. And that's just amazing. And the quality of the students that they're both producing is absolutely first rate. And I'm so proud of them for that. What you're doing, Jenny, in the online academy, there are many, many wonderful things, but the most wonderful, I think, is it allows anybody who's curious at all to, in a clandestine way, come in and join us and learn from you and learn what the 5.0 system is about. And then you can decide what you want to do after that.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand that, sometimes I think they picture, well, you're just, watching videos like online, right? No, it's very interactive. Mrs. Keiper teaches live Zoom classes. And of course, we have the Learn Worlds, that you're getting the techniques from. But then she'll also even give private Zoom lessons. And we're meeting in person actually quite a bit, so we've built this community of people, and it's brought in some really excellent martial artists who are now taking on Kempo 5.0. So I think it's really a great thing,
So there are a
agree.
couple
I
other
agree.
questions.
Oh,
All right, go ahead, sir.
No, I'm done. You go ahead. Let's get the questions.
There are a couple other questions rolling in, but I'd like to just add a piece. I was training at the Santa Fe school with Erica and Tony Potter and Mr. Vigil, just our entire Santa Fe crew, Coda Potter, Andrea Paredes. And we had a question about technique. And, in other styles, it can be like, well, this is how I remember it. And this is how I remember it. And there can be a sense of conflict on the mat, some friction but with Learn Worlds, it's none of that. It's like, okay, what does the journal say? Let's go to Learn Worlds. Let's watch that. And then there's a conversation, and it's not, I remember this and I was taught this. It's okay, let's discuss the how and the why behind the technique. And let's get to the bottom of our understanding, which I feel brings us together as martial artists so much stronger. We don't get this friction and contention when we're on the mat, which is so cool.
Yes, and by you guys doing all of that, you're doing exactly what Ed Parker wanted. He just didn't have the technology to do that. And it's quite new, actually. That's why we're the first ones out of the chute doing something like that. But I think what's really important is the Learn Worlds provides you the opportunity for that experience. And the point is that experience is what we're all about. Everybody getting together and interacting and creating a solution base. So we can completely eliminate, the thing that you brought up was a little bit uncomfortable, which is you start getting people arguing about the right way to do this technique or that technique. All of that that's all gone. That's all completely gone. We have a standardized structure that everybody has to adhere to. And then we reinforce and reward everybody to branch out and use different experimentation and try the technique this way or that way. But when it comes to testing and what you need to know to get to the next belt, it's crystal clear, completely transparent, and you can get exactly the same information in La Paz, Bolivia, or Sydney, Australia.
Yes.
And that is incredibly important when I began to look in and study how really big international organizations succeeded. And one of those principles is the clarity of the information and the full transparency of that. You set the standard and you'd better hold that standard. Because if you let people just kind of, which is rampant in the martial art world and unfortunately in the Kempo world, you're just giving away black belts, you're selling black belts, you're promoting people to a very, very high level, even 10th degree black belt, and they don't even know the base system. And that waters everything down, and that diminishes the life that Ed Parker had and the work that he did. And that's where we got to draw the line. And we got to say, okay, time out, everybody. Can we at least have a standard? Where's the bottom? And the answer is there isn't. Because everybody's just winging it, doing whatever, including eliminating half the art. And which is very clearly laid out by Ed Parker. And I'm not making this up. This is exactly how he laid it out. So, it's that weird thing again, where I want to try to leapfrog over the heads of different associations and go right to the students, the black belt students, and encourage you to pursue this information because it is absolutely magical. It's wonderful.
So there's two other questions, and I feel like these two will work in tandem to kind of bring us back to full circle, kind of what I was thinking, kind of ending with an idea of where 5.0 is going to go. So the first question, I'll let you choose how you want to address this to close this out, is where do you see Kempo 5.0 in the next 20 years, and what might push the art most? That's one question from somebody in our audience. And another question, let me scroll down here, comes from our own, okay, I scrolled too far. Bear with me, Miss Madane Parsagian. It says, why did you choose Anto Parsagian to be your successor, and how do you see him passing the art down after, when it's time to pass the torch?
There was a pivotal moment for us back in, in 96, where unfortunate circumstances there in the Lake Arrowhead, California, led me and immediately Anto to separate ourselves from the Kempo group that was there and open our own school across the parking lot. And with that, stepping away was the beginning of what eventually became known as Kempo 5.0 and how we were going to run things and live our lives together. And we looked at each other back and where it was just two of us, right when I opened that school. And we were in for our first workout in the new school, just the two of us. And I looked at him and he agreed. And we said, you know what, we're going to do it like this, the way we know how to do it. And if we're successful, that's great. If we have 6 students, wonderful. If we have 6,000, so be it. But we are not going to sacrifice what we do to gain students and power and money and all that other stuff. If the number of students come and the money comes and the power comes, it's got to be for the right reason, or I don't want to do it. You know, we've only got so many heartbeats here on this earth. And if you want to spend yours only in the pursuit of money and the next thing you're going to buy, or the grandiose statement of being a whatever degree black belt, then go ahead and do that. But I'm not going to do that. Neither is Anto. And because we have stood shoulder to shoulder through everything and created this entire 5.0 world together, along with many other people like Dan Pribble and several others, you know, we own it. And that's how Anto got to be that close to me and me to him. I mean, we don't look at each other separate. We're both one and the same. That's why at the camp in 2022, when I went to 10th degree black belt, I took Anto Parsagian and Dan Pribble 1 year early to their next belt rank, because that day was never going to happen again. And those are the two people who I'm the closest to, who've been the most impactful, who have dedicated their lives to the 5.0 system like I have. And I wanted to share the experience. On the night I went to 10th, I wanted Anto to go to 8th and Dan to go to 7th. And then I also awarded Dan my 35-year-old ripped up black belt with the 7 stripes on it. And those were a complete surprise to both of them. They had no idea I was going to do that. And now to finish that circle, the next, so that was on a Thursday night, our first night to test. We did all that, surprised both of them with their promotion to 7th and 8th. And then on the Saturday night banquet, excuse me, Dan Pribble got up in front of everybody to accept his 7th degree black belt diploma. And he took the microphone and he said, we all around the world have worked so hard to make this a special day for you. And you turned around and you made it about me and Anto. And I said, that's it. That's exactly the point. It is such a pleasure for me to be able to give them that feeling and that accomplishment. And in turn, they will carry that on. And other students who are affected by that energy, they will see the value of making your life about other people and yourself, not just about yourself. And I think if we have that as a jumping off point for how to be humans on planet Earth, we can make this a much better place to live for all of us.
Our success is creating success in others. Isn't that that how
That
you say
is,
it?
that is the axiom.
So we are approaching the top of the hour. Of course, you know, my old radio brain says I'm supposed to give the station identification right now, but it's 12 o'clock. And but
Yeah.
I do want to point out that, you know, Mrs. Keiper has the Online Academy YouTube channel, and also the World Training Center has a YouTube channel as well. And there's a wealth of material out there. You know, if that might help pique your interest even more. You know, we're not here to, we're, of course, like Mr. Speakman has been saying, to give a commercial or sell. You just can't help it. It's just part of the world that we're in, and that I'm being more and more attached to, if that makes sense. I appreciate each and every one of you who have joined us live today. That really means a lot. And it also means a lot when you share it. We want these messages and these wonderful interviews to get out to people. You know, we're not about talking about fighting and, you know, all those sorts of cool sports aspects on our show, but we're really getting to know the people and sharing what's on their hearts, like Mr. Speakman has been so generous to do today. So, Mrs. Keiper, do you have another question? Do we want to extend this just a moment or two here?
Well, if you're opening the floor for another question, of course, always have the questions. We have a new sign in from Holland. We know who's from Holland. So hello, Holland, welcome. Which is great, because this is the perfect question. We are all over the world. We have like-minded family all over the world. You're in Las Vegas. So how did we get people who are so like-minded from all over the world? And how can people who are interested in joining become a part of our worldwide family? How has that been a thing before the Online Academy? And then, of course, Online Academy can help with that. But how can that be, Mr. Speakman?
Well, we accomplished this wonderful goal that you have just outlined very correctly, I think, by one principle of human behavior and physics and being alive, which is like energies attract.
Yeah.
And as most of us know, everything has a vibratory aspect to it. Light does, physical things, a rock, what have you. And so do thoughts, and so do intentions. And so that goes back to the idea of how we started this in the first place, where Anto and I looked at each other and said, okay, we're going to do it like this. And if it works, great. If not, great. But we're doing it like this. And if we were right, then other people who thought that way would want to be a part of it, because they see us as a solution, not as a problem. And that's given way to this amazing, you know, like the people that are in Holland and the Netherlands right now, who I love dearly. I know they love me. We're very, very close. And, you know, to think about that, as you pointed out, I live in Las Vegas and they live in Boomschoten, Holland. How's that? Isn't that the best name? You know, where are you from? Boomschoten. You know, I mean, that's, what are you going to do about it? You know, it's a little New York thing for you. But imagine for us to be that close and to have the love and friendship that we have. Yes, it was the Kempo and eventually the Kempo 5.0 that brought us together, but that's not what it's about now. It's about how much we feel for one another and want to help each other in life, and by extension, help to make the world a better place. And that really is the goal for me personally. However many heartbeats I have left before it's time for me to transition to the other side, is what can I do to help to make the world a better place and to be the best humans that we can possibly be. You know, there are two things that face us on planet Earth: natural disasters and man-made disasters. And those man-made disasters, which are in full display, obviously right now, are completely avoidable. We don't have to live that way. We can select and choose to live a different way. And I want to be a part of that energy, of that solution base, and use the Kempo 5.0 family that we've created and that we live in as an example of how we can have a better human experience on planet Earth.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about it is, yes, even if we are participating in the physical aspect of Kempo 5.0, that doesn't stop what we are about to allow that to go into our community. So how we interact with our family and our friends and everybody we come in contact with is indirectly affected by the love and who we are of Kempo 5.0, which is so beautiful. It's amazing.
Right. No, I agree. And you can imagine how gratifying it is for me to hear those words come out of your mouth as one of the senior black belts and the woman and the leader that you are and the business that you have, because you are like all of the other school owners. You get it. This is what it's about. It's about that human experience and how we can help each other to have a better life. And then by extension, everybody else that we interact with on this huge scale. So it's enormously gratifying to me to have you and everybody else, and Lori, you too, recognize and give voice to who we are and what we do, and try to attract the same kind of energetic value in other people to come in and help us to build this still bigger and better. And I think that's exactly what's happening. I'm so very proud of what we have done and anxious and excited about what we're going to do in the very near future.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still questions rolling in, so we're just going to have you back again, sir. It's
Okay.
have to be a thing.
It was such,
All
I
right.
thought it was such amazing content today. And if you are watching live, again, thank you. If you're watching the replay, thank you. And we ask you to share this because, again, I want more people to see, this world and what Mr. Speakman has to say particularly. And thank you for the gift of your time today. I know that's a lot of time and we so appreciate it. Next week, really quickly, on Halloween, we have a kind of a perfect episode for Halloween coming up. We have Mr. Matthew Page, otherwise sometimes known as Master Ken, and Mr. Kevin Conan Bankins. They just released a movie, which is really kind of perfect for Halloween, called Cop versus Killer. And now I'm afraid of Mr. Bankins. That's okay. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to have the two of them on next week and discuss their movie and have some fun. So please join us for that as well. And again, thank you, Mr. Speakman. And I'm going to say
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Wait, it's
Bye,
not-
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.